At number 30, what quarterback's name shows up?
Well, the guy that just made Nick Foles leave town, and that's Gardner Minshew. Oh, Minshew the Ginsu, right? I mean, hey, listen, and we'll talk about this because I had Gardner Minshew at 29. 29 and 30, and we'll talk about it in a minute. I had him flipped, and I kind of was torn between which way to go, and I'll tell everybody what the tiebreaker is when we unveil that. But Gardner Minshew, again, he's an exciting football player. First off, he brings something to the team and the organization more than what's on the field. And do I take that into account, when I'm sitting here ranking these players? Hey, when it's two players that I think physically are the same, but I think one guy has an edge about him and has some natural leadership qualities and charisma about him, and you could see teammates follow him, I give that guy the advantage when there's a tie and there's nothing else. Gardner Minshew does have that. You see the fan base rallied around him. You could tell the team rallies around him. He's got an edge in which he plays. Paul, he's big and he can make some things happen when there's nothing there to be had. He is a good athlete, and he's a good thrower. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a great arm. It's below NFL starting quarterback average arm. That's the truth of the matter. But because of being an athlete, because he's natural at the position, and because what I really believe is his greatest strength is throws between 10 and 25 yards, intermediate type passes. He is a phenomenal thrower of those type of those balls there. Whether it's a quick fade down the sideline, right, Paul? You go look at his highlights. There's lots of big time throws, one-on-one coverage. He's aggressive. He sees one-on-one. He goes, I got confidence in myself. I'm going to put the ball in a place where I know my guy can get it. And he can do it any way he wants.
Yes, he can. Yeah. And I want to jump in just to add strength to what you're saying, Chris, while it makes the most sense. His passer rating on passes of more than 20 yards downfield, highest in the NFL. So not just one of the better throwing it downfield, it was number one.
Right. And I remember that because we had this little discussion on deep balls. I can't remember if we did it on Pro Football Talk where, deep balls to me are 40 plus yards, that type of arm, right? Maybe I'm different. Intermediate to me is somewhere between 15 and 25 or really between 10 and 30, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady can throw the ball 25 yards with their pinky fingers. I mean, so that to me is not deep ball, but nonetheless, you're right. The stat says a lot. And, when I do these rankings and do it, I go back and watch film of every guy because I just want to write a few notes down of like things that I forgot he did that well and he does this bad. And that was the thing that I came away with Gardner Minshew is those type of throws that you just mentioned. Even the deep crossing routes, anywhere from 10 to 22 yards. It doesn't matter the coverage, if it's tight man, zone, whatever it is. He's got great feel on how to place those balls over linebackers or safeties or whoever's covering in man coverage. So I think all of those things are the reason I got him, ranked at number 30. Am I sold that he's the franchise yet in Jacksonville? No, I'm not. But he has a lot of the traits to be that guy, certainly, and he can make plays. We'll see. I still have questions about, big time power throws, right? There's some moments of.
However, Chris. So
go ahead.
And this is what I wanted to get back to a moment ago, and I heard you say it. You said he has a below average NFL arm, and I agree, he does. I think some people will hear that, and then we point out the fact that he was number one in the NFL on throws 20 yards or more downfield. How do those two, one's an opinion and one's a fact, go together? That his arm isn't that great, and you say he can't make the power throw, yet he's tops in the league of throwing the ball 20 yards or more downfield.
Well, I think he's got great feel, touch, and accuracy. That's for sure. Now, again, when you need a 45-yard missile post down the middle, that's not going to be like his strength. He's not, off his back foot throwing two-jet wasp like Patrick Mahomes. No, he's not going to be able to do that either. So, again, he's got great feel. He's got an aggressive nature about him. He's looking to make plays that way. Mm-hmm. And yes, I mean, he's good. He's good at that area. But when I talk about arm strength too, it's more than just deep balls. I also can tell you when I went back and watched film when, hey, he needed to throw a 100-mile-per-hour fastball into a tight window, and let's say a receiver is running a 15-yard in cut. He couldn't always, put the mustard with the accuracy together to make those type of throws happen, which are arm strength throws. In fact, arm strength shows up in those throws more than any throw. I mean, I forget the deep ball and stuff like that. Mahomes and Rodgers and Deshaun Watson and those guys who have the best arms in the sport right now, their arm strength shows on those type of throws more than, a 50-yard post. It's he's danced around the pocket, and all of a sudden there's a guy coming across the middle, and oh my gosh, it's a tight window, and zoom, it's, Patrick Mahomes or Rodgers throwing a laser in there. Gardner Minshew's not going to do that. So, and I will say too, like, I want to hit on positives and negatives. Hey, if we're going to be fair, Gardner Minshew feasted on the week a little bit, certainly statistically as far as defenses are concerned. And the game had to be played a certain way too, to where, he was protected and game managing to a degree, but had a good feel of, okay, I'm managing the game, but now's the time for me to get into backyard football and start scrambling around and make a play that way. And for that, I give him a lot of credit, because when he does do it, he's not careless with the football either. And that's impressive for a young quarterback.
I want to draw a parallel with Gardner and what he did last year in his rookie season with another rookie. Let's go with Drew Lock, second-round pick out of Denver. Now, I think Drew started 5 games all in December, did very well. But based off that 5 games, I get the feeling that John Elway is like, all right, we got our guy. Look at what he did in December. This is our quarterback of the future. Check that off the list. We want him to get better, but we're building around this guy. Gardner Minshew, and you pointed out that he did it against some weaker teams, but had more experience last year, had better numbers, took care of the football, I think, in a more impressive way. You mentioned Dave Caldwell, the GM, should be proceeding like, okay, a little impressed, but I'm not totally sold yet. If you're playing the other side of the coin and want to say Gardner's our guy for the next 10 years, what do you say?
Well, I would say, first off, I mean, like we're talking about, he's got to prove it on the field. He hasn't done that. But, what I would say is you got a guy that's played a lot of football, and he's very natural at the position. And while his physical tools might not blow you out of the water like a Drew Lock, because Drew Lock can make some throws and you just go, whoa, like that ball exploded out of his hand. What a throw. No, it's not going to be about that. With Gardner Minshew, it's going to be, a little bit of a mixture of, hey, a guy who knows how to really run the offense efficiently, can make all the throws, even though he's not going to make our jaws drop doing it all the time. And then, every now and then he's going to make a play where he's going to buy time in the pocket or scramble or do something like that, where you go, man, there was nothing open, or, the protection was bad, but look at our quarterback made a play. And, he can do those things. It's just going to be about, can he do it consistently, for another year or two to solidify himself as that guy in Jacksonville. And that's really where we're at in this countdown. We got a lot of guys here who right now got a chance to be the guy, but we don't know if they're truly capable of being that guy. And they're going to have to earn it and prove it to us all this year to get more years with this team or more years with another team as a starter. And I think that's where we are with Gardner right now. But like we started it off, I think you and I both see a guy that has starting quarterback qualities and starting quarterback charisma and leadership. And I think that's what Dave Caldwell and Jacksonville see, and they're hoping that all works out. Yeah, number 29 is, I'm blind. Teddy Bridgewater. Okay, sorry. Almost said the wrong name there. That would have been scary. But Teddy Bridgewater will be my number 29. And, what I talked about here, and I talked about how earlier with Gardner Minshew, I had him at 29 in front of Teddy Bridgewater. I had kind of gone back and forth with these two.
Until this morning.
Yes, until this morning, I was. And, I got notes because I was going back through I've taken pictures of my notes, and I was going back through my phone last night and looking through my notes because it was so close in this area between certain guys. And when I did, rough drafts of these quarterback rankings, sometimes I had Minshew in front of Bridgewater and then other ways around. And, I woke up this morning and I said, you know what? It's really close. They both bring a lot to the football team off the field, like I talked about with the charisma and the leadership. Teddy Bridgewater's got some of those things too. And I just said, you know what? Since it is so close, I'm going to give Teddy the edge because of his history and what he's done in the league so far. The fact that he's certainly a little more proven than Gardner Minshew. Teddy Bridgewater, there is something about his appeal as a leader of your football team. And I saw Matt Rule on PFT today. He kind of made a comment about that too, about how guys in the locker room follow Teddy Bridgewater. And then, hey, when you talk about on the field, it's not always going to blow you away. I wish he was more aggressive. Does he leave some yards on the field at time where I go, man, if he just came out with an aggressive mindset, he might have had an extra 150 yards throwing the football today. Yeah, I've been frustrated by Teddy Bridgewater that way. But the big thing with Bridgewater is he is smart. He takes care of the football. He is accurate. And once he gets a feel and some comfort level for the game, he will start to take some chances. And when he does, he is capable of making some throws and some plays on the run, to where this is why I just gave him a slight advantage over Gardner Minshew as far as that's concerned.
I think there's also some real unique parts of his story, Chris, that make him easy to respect and I think easy to like as well. I'm just going to run down the list. First of all, there's something about a guy who's a high pick. He was a first-round pick, even though it was low in the first round, who suffers a major injury and then spends some seasons as a backup, kind of bouncing around. I mean, he went 4 years in between real opportunities, and he earned the opportunity with the way he played last year. But I think guys gravitate to someone who had a little bit of, whether it's not failure, it's a bunch of seasons where there was some real wonder if he'd ever get another chance again. And I think players, offense or defense, young or old, automatically respect somebody like that.
I think you're 100%. You as a player, when you see a guy that Teddy Bridgewater, who's gone through what he's gone through and always has a smile on his face, always willing to work. Anybody you talk to is always tells you he's got this positive frame of mind. And then, then overcoming that and having success, yeah, players respect that. You're showing people in the locker room that, whoa, one, this guy loves football and he's willing to work at it. And I think that goes a long way in the locker room, as you know. And I think Teddy Bridgewater, he shows that he wanted to be a starting quarterback and he wants to be great in the NFL and all those things. I think he wears those thoughts and feelings on his sleeve to a degree. So, the story is amazing. It really is. I mean, I wasn't sure he was ever going to play football again. And now he's making $22 million a year in a really good spot that I think has a system and players around him that fit his skill set. And he has a chance, just like we're talking about these other guys. We don't know if he's really the guy yet, but we see parts of his game and we see his game to go, I think he can be. I'm pretty sure he can be. And this is going to be a big year for Teddy Bridgewater. My biggest complaint, like I told you, is I want him to be more aggressive. If he's more aggressive, he will stamp, his fate right in Carolina, and he'll be the guy. But if it's so, I'm going to always look for short completions and manage the offense and do that. They're going to look for somebody else new at quarterback. I don't think he's going to be able to take the approach, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but I don't think he's going to be able to take the approach of what he did in Minnesota and New Orleans, which was, I'm going to let the game come to me. I'm not going to mess it up. And finally, when I get a feel and the play caller gets a feel, I'll make a few plays and make it happen. That's really what he did last year. In Minnesota, they played defensive football. They ran the ball, and he just made a few plays every game. He's not going to be able to get away with that in Carolina. I don't think so. If he has a year or two of like that, they're going to be back in the draft looking for a quarterback, and he'll be moved back to being a backup quarterback somewhere. So this is his chance. He's got the weapons. It's a system that fits him, and let's see what he does with it.
You mentioned the system, and that's Joe Brady, the 30-year-old offensive coordinator who was at LSU last year. He was the passing game coordinator there and had a lot to do with their success, with that aggressive mindset that Joe Burrow had. But he'll be calling plays for the very first time, and he gets Teddy Bridgewater, as you mentioned, has a history of nice success, but also conservative decision-making and a conservative style of play. How do you think Teddy's history and the way he's played goes with the system of Joe Brady, who was aggressive in the 1 year we had to evaluate him, but there's no Joe Burrow and Chase and Jefferson going up against lesser competition now either?
No, that's right. It's not going to be as easy as what Joe Burrow made it look like, And what Joe Brady was doing at LSU was very advanced for college football. In the NFL world, that is going to be basic stuff in a lot of ways. This is like he ran Sean Payton's first 2 weeks of installation pass offense in college as the meat and potatoes of his offense. So he's going to have more, and you're right. He's not going to have a one-on-one mismatch every time a team plays man and just go, okay, I want to pick this guy and do that. Now, I will say, he's got some talent there. When you start to talk about DJ Moore, who I'm a big fan of, and then Curtis Samuel, and then Robbie Anderson, who they signed in free agency, who I know is really good friends with Teddy Bridgewater, and it just speaks to Teddy Bridgewater again. He wanted to be there because of Bridgewater. There was a relationship. That's what made it happen. And then you have Christian McCaffrey being that Alvin Kamara type out of the backfield. They're going to find lots of ways to find short completions, move the ball, do those things. But the big question will be that, Paul, when he sees man-to-man and he's got a guy going on a 30-yard go route, or he's got Christian McCaffrey on a 5-yard out route, what's he going to do?
Right.
That's going to be the big question. And this is where Gardner Minshew is better than Teddy Bridgewater.
Yes.
And this is why I had him in front. Because Gardner Minshew is going to go, oh, I'm going to win the game, or I'm going to change the drive right here and do that. Teddy's going to go, I'm not sure. I'll just take the completion and I'll play the next down. So there's a little bit of a different mindset that way. And it's safer. You won't lose games. But as you've heard me say a million times, I'm not so sure it's going to lead you to winning games. And if you want to be a playoff team and make a run in the playoffs, as a quarterback, you know this. You got to have that mindset at times, because there's going to be times where your team's not going to play as well. And the quarterback, you got to make some plays to get the team over the hump to win the game on that Sunday. Number 28, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Miami Dolphins, Fitzmagic. You want to talk about gutty, gritty, career journeyman. I mean, that's Ryan Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic. I always say he's got a shamrock up his ass. I know that. He's got an Irish last name, and there's a shamrock stuck up there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 shamrocks, not 2 rockets, 2 shamrocks. Because, you knew wherever Ryan Fitzpatrick went, you went, oh, well, that starting quarterback's going to get hurt, and Ryan Fitzpatrick will be the starter in week 2 or week 3, or something's going to happen. And it seems like that's how it's played out really his whole career. It's amazing. But, Ryan Fitzpatrick, when he's hot, he is awesome to watch. I think, this is why I got Ryan Fitzpatrick at 28. When he's hot, he can do things like what we saw in week 17 last year. He's throwing lasers all over the field against the New England Patriots, and you're just going, this is unbelievable. He's just making one play after another. He's tough as hell, hangs in the pocket. He'll run and lower his shoulder, and he acts like he's 250 pounds. So he brings some excitement to the team that way. But the reason he's number 28 and, teams always look to replace him is because he is inconsistent. And he can have moments of, holy cow, how did he miss that open receiver? Or, holy cow, he's missed the last 4 receivers who are all open. And then he can also be careless with the football, as we know. So he's a very hot and cold type quarterback that way. I think that's what I'll always remember Ryan Fitzpatrick as. Yeah.
But he was 35 last year. And so how did he move up 7 spots, which is significant considering last year was, a lot of up and also a lot of down.
Yeah, it was. But I think, last year, the one thing I look at is more up than down, certainly. And of course, some of the down early in the year, if I'm going to be true to Ryan Fitzpatrick or myself, I can't sit there and blame it on him. That Dolphins team early in the year, they were in Strugglesville. They couldn't figure out which way to go or do anything on the offensive side of the ball. But I think between, some of the play really I've seen the last few years with Fitzpatrick, but last year especially down the stretch of the season, he had some really good moments. He did. And, a guy that I wouldn't be shocked if has another solid year this year, maybe gets replaced during the season at some point by Tua, but just wouldn't be shocked if he's in a similar situation next year with another team if he continues to do this, because it's not amazing ability, but it's good ability. It's a good athlete. It's a good arm. He can make great throws. He can have great misses. It's a very long, deliberate, over the long motion delivery, which can lead the ball to spraying all over the place and the ball being batted down. And he can play small at times. But, I guess what I'm saying basically is the end of the year, the last 6, 8 weeks of the season kind of made me think differently of Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He's a quarterback who can be hot and cold and pile up the interceptions when it's bad. And you talked about the long motion, pretty similar production-wise and motion-wise to Jameis Winston. And he's 5 spots ahead of Winston. I kind of think of them as similar guys. There's a lot to like, but it's very hot and cold. What led to him being 5 spots ahead of Jameis?
I think that just, is like wild as Fitzpatrick can be, and he can be one of the more careless quarterbacks with the football. It's not to Jameis Winston's, capacity as far as the carelessness. I think that's the biggest difference, right? And, I just think
the stats would back that up recently. Yeah.
They would back that up, right? I mean, I would think so,
Yes.
especially from last year. I know Jameis with the 30 interceptions and all that, but I think that's more of it. And Ryan Fitzpatrick certainly throughout his career has had moments where I go, oh, he lost that game for them. I mean, he missed some wide open receivers and had some bad turnovers and that. But I do feel like the last few years, especially, he's reined in a little more control of the football that way, and doesn't have as many moments of just an avalanche. I feel like when he used to throw one interception, you used to go, oh, watch out, because we might see 2, 3, 4, and 5 come here soon. Now it just stops at 2. And maybe there's a few other ones where you go, oh, that almost got picked. But I do think he's found the governor there to kind of control himself and not totally lose control of his play and the football.
Yeah, he only threw 13 interceptions last year. I think he started all but one game. So that's the average less than 1 a game, which is very good for any quarterback. If I set the over-under on number of games that Ryan Fitzpatrick will start next year at, let's say 4.5, would you go over or under?
Man, it's a really tough one. My heart wants to say under. It does. Because I just feel like if it's close and Tua shows everybody he's healthy and he's telling everybody he's healthy, that the Dolphins are just going to go, okay, we picked him number 5. Let's get this experiment going. We know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. We don't need to see any more of that. Let's start the new era. And I guess that's where I expect it to go. I do. I expected that Tua does well enough in the preseason, in training camp, that they just go, okay, we feel comfortable where he's at. Let's let it ride with Tua. I guess so. What about you? What do you think? What's your gut tell you?
I would say over only because, and I see it like you. I mean, we know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. I think he's a really, really good backup. But as a starter, you probably know how it's going to play out 14, 15, 16 games in. I would say over because Chan Gailey's the offensive coordinator, and he was with Chan in Buffalo for a couple of good seasons. They were also together with the Jets. And you and I have talked about it before. We think Tua will end up starting more games than not next year because they probably have some time down there in Miami, and they can grow with him. But if the offensive coordinator believes a little more in a quarterback he has more history with, and let's say they're 6-5 down the stretch, Tua might be a little bit banged up, I can see Gailey going with Fitzpatrick to try and win some potentially meaningful games in November and December. So I'm saying over.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's not a crazy thought. It's not. And listen, I don't know. Miami might decide to just start Ryan Fitzpatrick just like we've seen with other young quarterbacks and just see where it goes. And then once they feel like, hey, we're out of it or whatever it may be. Yeah, I am interested. I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to give up that job easily. That's for sure. I don't.
Right.
I think he realizes it's the end of his career. He does like the offense like you've talked about. They got some decent talent down there. Devontae Parker really emerged at the end of last year as like a big-time wide receiver. And I'm sure Fitzpatrick wants to capitalize on some of the great moments they had at the end of the last season. So that'll be interesting to see. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think ultimately we both know that it's going to be Tua that prevails. Number 27, the Red Rocket, the Red Rifle, whatever he is. It's Andy Dalton.
He's red.
Yeah. He's red. I know that. That's right. He's a backup quarterback that's better than some starters in the NFL. I know that too. And that's why I made him here. But Andy Dalton, I don't even know where to begin with him here. First off, one of those guys that is, probably a little disrespected for what he did in his career to this point, anyways, because, the Bengals don't go to the playoffs, or he did go to the playoffs for 5 straight years and they didn't win a game or anything, win a playoff game that way. I understand the Bengals moving away from Andy Dalton. That it had run its course. They wanted to see if they can get some new blood, some new energy in there to lead their organization. But Andy Dalton, to me, hey, he's a guy that, I think could be anywhere from 20 to 32 on a given year, really. I really look at it that way. Last year.
What's the highest you would have had him, Chris? What's the highest you ever would have had him?
I know. I'm thinking about, probably 3-4 years ago. I think he was dancing around right like 15, 16, somewhere in that area, right? Where, again, he's not the kind of guy that's going to make you go like, oh my gosh, whoa, unbelievable. Did you see that throw? Did you see that run? No, that's not what Andy Dalton's about. But like some of these guys we've talked about, there's no glaring weakness to his game. I mean, he's got a really good arm. It's better than Teddy Bridgewater, Gardner Minshew, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, this guy is an easy, effortless thrower. It's for NFL starters, it's probably above NFL average strength, somewhere in there, not much above it, but throws a pretty ball. It's perfect spirals. They're easy to catch. Deep ball's pretty good. Hey, is it always been perfect in clutch time? No. Has he had moments of being careless with the football? Definitely. And I think the reason he's in the position he's in, and, like some of the other guys we've talked about or whatever, I just don't – he's not the type of talent that, hey, our team's beat up, our defense is hurt, or we're not at full strength on the offensive side. He's not the kind of guy that you go, oh, okay, well, we'll give the ball to Andy today, and we're going to let him throw it 45 times. He'll carry us through, and he'll give us a chance to win at the end of the day. No, that's not what he is. He's not. But if you give him some support and a little run game and some receivers to throw to, he's going to make good decisions, nice throws, and he knows where to go with the ball, and he'll occasionally make a wow type throw. But I think that's ultimately what Andy Dalton is in my eyes.
Are you surprised that he didn't surface somewhere as the starting quarterback heading into next year?
Well, no, I'm not surprised. I mean, I thought there was a chance, New England might flirt with them. I really thought that the Chicago Bears would try to get Andy Dalton. That was the team I thought more than anybody was going to make a play for him. The other one I thought was the Colts, and I think the Colts legitimately like Andy Dalton too. From everything I know, just from people behind the scenes, is Andy Dalton was very high on their list as far as guys they wanted at the quarterback position. But it seems like at that time, Cincinnati was asking for too much in a trade. And then, of course, Phillip Rivers was just a free agent, and he has some history with them as well. So, no, I knew he had a chance, but I can't say that I'm surprised. And I got to say, too, for most teams in football, I don't think you want Andy Dalton as your starter right now. You don't. I can understand the Colts wanting him. But if I'm a new franchise and, hey, we know what Andy Dalton is. If I'm a new like the Jacksonville Jaguars, I wouldn't want to replace Andy Dalton for Gardner Minshew right now, even though I think Andy Dalton's a little bit better, obviously, by my rankings. I wouldn't want to replace him right now. Gardner Minshew has a chance to build something, be something, kind of become that face of the organization and have a little aura about him. Andy Dalton, that ran out in Cincinnati. So he's going to be relegated to backup quarterbackville here. And if he gets a chance, he's in a good situation and with a good team around him, or he might be able to become a starter once again.
And that kind of brings me to my next question. Which route do you think it's going to go? Do you think he's going to get a Teddy Bridgewater kind of chance, whether it's next year, 2 years down the road, to be the guy again and to have that second opportunity? Or go back to, let's say, John Kitna. John Kitna had a nice little run with the Bengals, not as long as Andy Dalton's, but he had a really good year when Carson Palmer was a rookie and then stuck around the league. He was the kind of guy you'd see on the sideline 9 years later and be like, boy, John Kitna's still in the league as a trusted backup. But he never really got the chance to be the guy again. Which side do you think it's going to, or which way do you think it's going to go for Andy?
That's a good question, Paul. And, when you first laid it out there, I feel like it'll be more of the John Kitna career than I think, the Teddy Bridgewater. First off, I don't think Dalton brings the Teddy Bridgewater charisma to the locker room, the team, and just exudes that confidence that Bridgewater does that makes also the coaches feel confident in him that, whoa, this guy, he's not afraid of anything and he's not afraid to play into the big lights. Not to say Andy Dalton is scared. I just don't think he's the guy that exudes it. You don't just see it like, oh, man. When he walks in the locker room, you don't go, whoa, there's Andy Dalton, there's the man. I bet you when Teddy Bridgewater walks in the room a little bit, it's like, oh, look, he's talking up a storm and he's laughing and whatever else, and he's entered the room. So I think there's that aspect of it. And, I think the biggest thing, Paul, is he's got a Greek god playing quarterback in front of him right now that I just don't know if he'll get hurt ever. That's the way. I mean, Dak Prescott, like other than Cam Newton, you have a fight between all 32 quarterbacks. I think Cam Newton's going 1, and I'm probably going to pick Dak Prescott as number 2. He's just such a big, strong, physical man, and I just don't envision him
start.
That's what I mean. I don't envision him getting hurt to let Andy Dalton have that chance to kind of, further along his career once again.
Right. I think it's a good point, too. Like when I looked at that signing, I don't know how good it is for Andy Dalton, but I think it's wonderful for the Cowboys. Like if you're Dak Prescott, he's not young anymore, but he's not that much of a veteran 4 seasons in. And Andy Dalton has basically been a starting quarterback for 9 years. He can help Dak with his development. And think about how he can help Kellen Moore. He's a quarterback that Andy played against in college back in like 2010-ish. They were against each other, and Dalton's 1 year older. But you think about what he can give the Cowboys starting quarterback and what he can help the offensive coordinator with. Not great for Dalton, I don't think, but a terrific signing for the organization.
Yeah, it is. It's a great insurance policy. Again, I know the Cowboys, they didn't go to the playoffs. I don't care. I still look at that roster and go, if things click and they stay healthy, I think they're a Super Bowl caliber type roster. They're going to be a pain in the butt. And if Dak did go down, he certainly got some support and a good offense and some receivers around him to make it happen. But, yeah, that was a brilliant signing by the Cowboys. A lot like what the Saints did. The Saints were good. Last year they said, well, we're a Super Bowl team. We can't, afford if Drew Brees gets hurt for 5 weeks to where we go 1-4 with some schlepped backup quarterback, and all of a sudden we're out of the playoff race. So they went out there and protected their team with an investment into Teddy Bridgewater. And I think the Cowboys looked at it the same way. And it makes a lot of sense. It's a great point you bring up, too, with Kellen Moore. That type of situation, when you're in that age group and that, you're right, there's going to be some dialogue there. Kellen Moore and Andy Dalton will probably do a lot of conversating about offensive ideas and things they should do on a weekly basis versus this defense or whatever it may be, to which is really going to help out Dak Prescott. And he's probably going to really enjoy being in the middle of those conversations and hearing some of the knowledge and things they throw out there. And it's, of course, only going to benefit him. So then he'll be like, all right, what time do you guys want to talk next week? Let's do it again.
Hey, who was the offensive coordinator you were around in your, I think, 7 years in the NFL? Who was the best that way at having conversations as peers, kind of almost as equals with the other quarterbacks in the room? Maybe it was because of former relationships he had with those quarterbacks or because he was on the younger side. But did you have anybody like that who was really good about just bouncing ideas off both ways?
I got lucky, really, in my 8 years. First off, you said 7, I played 8. Okay,
I shorted you.
Out of my last year. Okay, don't cheat me out of that last year. But the John Gruden is amazing that way. Now, we might have had a lot of conversation. We might not have had a lot of overall say. But then once he kind of got his game plan, orchestrated and knew pretty much how he wanted to play out, then he did let the quarterbacks conversate about what plays they liked on third down, the red zone plays, the 1st and 10 plays, the shot plays, whatever it may be. And there was a lot of dialogue during the week. So John Gruden was really cool that way. And in my time in Tampa, I had some quarterback room. I had a quarterback room one year. It was Brad Johnson, Brian Griese, myself, and Jason Garrett. You want to talk about being a fly on the wall with those 3 guys, and then John Gruden talking, and I was just sitting there taking.
Who was
it
the best
all
in the film room? Who was the best? Like, who did you learn the most from? Like interpreting what they were seeing and kind of going to school on what they saw and thought.
Well, you mean as far as quarterbacks are concerned, like guys I played with that way?
I mean, in that room with
Oh,
Greasy, Brad, and Gruden, and who was the other one? Jason Garrett.
yeah.
In that
No,
room.
yeah, in that room, they were all great. They really were. But again, I don't mean to be boring, but Gruden was special that way. Gruden's ability to communicate and get a point through as far as, okay, if we were learning this one, schematic play during the day, he was not only going to have us get on the board and we were going to talk about it and, hey, Simms, hey, rookie punk, get up there and draw it. What kind of X's and O's are those? Those are horrible. Who taught you that at Texas? All of that would go on. But then he would do that. But then, Paul, he would have a tape of like Joe Montana and Steve Young and all these other great players running the same play. And we would get to sit there and talk about different scenarios. To me, that was very special. It really was. Yeah, I learned a lot of football. I learned more football from John Gruden than anybody else. I can't deny that fact. Had some cool coaches with the Tennessee Titans, definitely. Dow Loggins, who's the quarterback coach for the New York Jets now. He was there. He was amazing to be with. Mike Heimerdinger, he's RIP. God rest his soul. But he was also another guy. I wasn't afraid to have those conversations. And then I would be lying to you, too, to say I didn't learn a whole new facet of quarterbacking when I went and played for Josh McDaniels in Denver. That was where I went from, okay, I've learned Gruden and West Coast stuff and all this. And then Josh McDaniels came and I, of course, learned the New England system and some of the rules they had in their offense that were different than Gruden's offense. And then just the way they taught the quarterback and all that, it really gave me a great perspective of two great systems in the NFL who are very different, but still get a lot of good results out of their quarterbacks. And it was cool to kind of see how they made the donuts behind the scenes.
What was the biggest way those two were different in terms of how they taught you and how they related to quarterbacks in that room?
Right. Okay. Gruden was more in your face, pizzazz, going to have some jokes, some videos, everything like that. Josh McDaniels and the New England way is just, it's like out of the book. Here's the drawing on the board and we're going to talk about it. And this is what you do. And you should read this guy. And that's it. And now, okay, let's go practice everything I just taught you. And you better do it just like I taught you, or it's not going to work and I'll bench you or whatever it may be. So that was the different aspect there. Along with this one might surprise you, Paul, and I've told you this before too, but like in the New England offense, there's no talk about drops. There's no talk about footwork. None of that. It's stay 6.5 yards behind the center. The offensive lines are going to know you're there, and we're going to build the pocket around you. And they don't care if you take 95 steps or 12 steps, as long as you get back to that spot. And when the receiver's open, throw it to them. That's all they cared about. Where Gruden in the West Coast, I know it's very rare.
It's really rare.
It is rare. It's maybe not the best thing for all young quarterbacks all the time either, because the feet do help the mind in making decisions. Where Gruden, as you know, and I think you've been in some West Coast offense where it would be, hey, 5 steps on this play. On the first hit, you look at this guy. On the second hit, you look at this guy. On the third hit, you go to that guy. No, it wasn't that way with the New England offense. And the other thing with the New England offense, just to bore you a little bit more here, is, everything is across the board. So not a lot of checking and pass plays in New England. Brady would get up to the line of scrimmage, and more times than not, those plays were all purpose. We don't care what the defense is. We've come up with these plays during the week of game planning to go, hey, we know they play these 5 coverages, and we feel like this play works against all 5 of those coverages. And no matter what the coverage was, you would go, okay, I'm going to go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Doesn't matter. Where in Gruden's offense, you might have some plays where it would go, hey, if it's 2 safeties, play that side. If it's 1 safety, play that side, And so there was a difference in the offense and the philosophy as well. Both are successful, as you know. I prefer the New England one a little bit more after learning it. But either way, they're both really good.
Number 26 on the Chris Simms top 40 quarterback list is
Joe Burrow, quarterback, Cincinnati Bengals, the number 1 pick in the draft. And yes, I know for everybody out there, I know we haven't seen Joe Burrow play football in the NFL yet. Listen, I am very confident in saying he's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be great or awesome. I'm not sure of that. But I think everything I studied coming out in the draft makes me believe that he's going to be great. It does. Now, he's got to go out and prove that on the field. I understand that. But at the same time, I saw enough in college to know the guy is going to come in and be able to run an NFL offense, make every throw you need to make. And more importantly, when you play in a bad team, usually you're under pressure as a quarterback. And to me, that was where, Joe Burrow just was out of this world good at LSU. I mean, out of this world good. Dad and I have talked about this with Joe Burrow. It's amazing for the team that won the national championship and went 15-0, and he's the number 1 pick, how bad his pass protection was on a week-to-week basis, and how it actually never came to really affect the football game because he is amazing in the pocket, he is amazing at escaping danger, and he is amazing at making big throws when people are all around him and danger is in the pocket, and he can still make a 20-yard strike throw down the field. So that's why I got Joe Burrow where he's at. And, Dad, what are your thoughts on him?
Well, you took it all. I think you said it right. He played pro football last year down at LSU. I say this all the time. Sometimes, we judge people just on one-loss records. I think sometimes it's better to be on a college football team that has to struggle at times. It's a little rough. You get to play what pro football is really all about. And Joe Burrow, and we talked about it during the offseason. When I watched his games, I was like, wow, their pass protection is not what you think. And I was shocked at how much he got sacked, got away from trouble, threw the ball with people around him, going to get smashed by a guy that's unblocked, and he turns and the other way to find somebody to throw the football to. And I think his downside is, if it all goes bad, as an NFL quarterback in his career, he'll be a good, solid NFL quarterback at worst. And so,
right.
And you know what, too? New quarterback in Cincinnati. Just, it's bringing life to the team. I can do it when I read their articles. You can see that they're excited. And it's going to, that will all filter into the coaches, the players. And I hope they give him a chance where we at least get to see, what he can do. I don't want to see a Bengals team that goes 2-14, and
right.
it's just the same show every week for the quarterback where you have no chance.
It seems like, and they've surrounded him, and I think we've talked about it with us three previously with the fact they've surrounded him with some pretty good receivers. They got A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Auden Tate there as well in Cincinnati. So there's some weapons for Joe Burrow. I'm curious because both of you, and I've heard you talk about this extensively, the tool of the arm strength for a quarterback. And Chris, you admitted that you didn't have the strongest arm strength of any quarterback coming out, although it was the cleanest film that you said you'd ever seen, perhaps from a quarterback in college. Why is the lack of arm strength not as much of a concern for you, for Joe Burrow, than it might be for some other quarterbacks?
Yeah, sure. Well, all right, dude, there's the two things I want to hit on there. First off, Dad said the floor for Joe Burrow, or is he's going to be a real good NFL quarterback? The ceiling, to me, is like he could be Peyton Manning. I know that I said that to you. That's who he reminded me of, really, in a lot of ways. Now, I think it's some of those qualities that, yes, it's not ever going to be one of the top 5 arms in football. It's not. It's going to be right around the middle of the pack as far as pure arm power is concerned. But his ability to throw, from awkward feet positions, awkward arm angles, he's got great anticipation. He's got great touch. He's a thrower and a passer, as Dad and I would talk about. He can drive the ball, but it's just not going to be a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. It's 95 or 96 miles per hour. So he can make every throw there is there to be had. Yes, but if there was a weakness to his game, it is his deep ball throwing. I think that was the thing I was the most underwhelmed by. But decision-making, ability to process information on the fly, and on why he's doing that, make the decision and make the accurate throw with chaos happening around him, is as good as I've seen. And the last thing I want to hit on, when you talked about the support around him, that's where the Bears went wrong. That's where a lot of teams go wrong when they draft these quarterbacks high. If you want your first pick of the draft investment to work, well, you better give them a support system to make it work. And at least Cincinnati seems like they're building an offensive line and trying to put some receivers around them to go, hey, we think this guy has something to him, and if we just give him a little talent, he's going to get this whole organization going in the right direction. And he's got an edge and charisma, and everything about him, to me, just exudes like franchise-type quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with just everything. And, that's you brought up a great subject. Why draft a quarterback in the first round and really declare that this is the man? And, your job, the coach's job, the general manager, everybody is on the line when you do that. He must succeed. So if you have an awful defense, don't worry about it. Protect the quarterback. Build around him. Just enforce it so much that slowly that will just materialize in helping the whole team. Don't be trying to go, well, we got 5 holes, let's just do a little. No. Build one great unit. I've learned, and I learned from George Young and Christopher and Ahmed, the New York Giants, we were loaded in whatever it would be, defensive lineman, offensive lineman. And if that guy was there in the first round, they just go, yep, we're taking him. Just get another big guy that can really play. And, don't be trying to, who's the guy that sticks his fingers in all the holes in the wall? Don't try to be that guy.
Right.
Especially when you're talking about a quarterback, make sure. Because you know why? If he plays well and the team doesn't do as good or as well as you want, you'll still survive as a coach as long as your quarterback gives everybody hope. So hope he gets that in Cincinnati. I really believe he will. They've done a pretty good job this year. And then they got to follow it up next year with just adding on to it.
So, Chris, real quick, what do you think the floor is for Joe Burrow as far as all-time Cincinnati Bengals quarterbacks? Because I was looking it up, and if you think he can be Peyton Manning, then you obviously think his ceiling is the best Bengals quarterback of all time. Yes. I was looking up on Pro Football Reference, the approximate value. They try to quantify the career value of some of these quarterbacks. At the top of the list was Ken Anderson, 4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, 1981 MVP, still somehow not in the Hall of Fame. Number 2 was Boomer Esiason. Then it was Andy Dalton. Then Carson Palmer. Then Jeff Blake. Where do you think the floor is for Joe Burrow? Where's the floor? What's the worst case scenario you think?
Yeah, it's a good discussion. It's a good question. And, listen, Ken Anderson, Boomer Esiason, Phil Simms. Hey, those are 3 guys that are be at the top of my list. I'm sorry for guys that I think should be in the Hall of Fame that are not. All right. Along with Jim Plunkett, probably I'd put him in that conversation. But that's the thing I love about Joe Burrow. To me, like, the floor is a little bit like what Dad said. I don't think it's ever going to be – I don't think it'll be as bad as Andy Dalton. Like, I don't think he'll be – I really think that's about the floor is what I'm saying. Andy Daltonville, maybe a little bit better. I don't think it's going to be much worse than that. Again, I just don't see any weaknesses to his football game. And then I don't see any weakness with – his character, competitive nature, toughness, charisma, ability to lead, ability not to care about what maybe some people think about you and just do what you think is right. I mean, to me, all those things just scream success to me.
So 26 is Joe Burrow, the new franchise quarterback.
Go ahead, Dad. What do you want to say?
No, I was just going to say, I really do think, Kenny Anderson in Cincinnati, not a big talker, nothing that you don't look and go, wow. But, man, he could stand in there. He was accurate as heck throwing the football, could throw it any kind of weather, and, just gets overlooked. And just like Jim Plunkett, just like Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves, that coaching career, and I never even hear his name brought up about going to the Hall of Fame. And then Tom Flores, he won 2 Super Bowls. I thought that was the magic thing. Win 2 Super Bowls, well, you got to go to the Hall of Fame. His name's never brought up. So, listen, there's a lot of people sitting out there since we've opened up the Hall of Fame. I know I'm not going to get off subject, But there's a group of people, since we've done what we've done and added people, that they need to do it again because it was too close. And there's other guys that I really just am adamant they need to be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yep. Ken Anderson's been passed over 30 times, I believe, that Ken Anderson has been passed over for the Hall of Fame. We're just going to turn this into a Phil Simms Hall of Fame advocacy podcast, though. We could do that.
Don't do that. I've already alienated so many people. It'll never happen. I'm not worried about it. So let's go ahead.
It's 25, Chris.
25, Drew Lock, Denver Broncos. And,
wow,
hey, we're going to talk about some of these other guys that are just right in front of Drew Lock here in a second. But I'm not going to lie, Drew Lock really excites me as a football player. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, I was a huge fan of him coming out in the draft. I thought he was the second best quarterback in the draft that year behind Kyler Murray. I really did. He's got like a lot of things that I look at to go, ooh, the guy could be great. First off, he's just a really natural, pure thrower of the football. And the ball explodes out of his hands with great ease. And I don't care where he's at, whether he steps into it and lets it go, he can throw that 100-mile-per-hour fastball. But the other thing that's important that I find fascinating about the guy, too, is he can throw the 96-mile-per-hour fastball off his back foot, falling down backwards and doing stuff like that, too. He reminds me of a Matthew Stafford as far as his skill set is concerned. That's really who he is. And again, I think the world of Matthew Stafford and his skill set. It's special. It's one of the greatest arms in the history of the sport. Drew Lock's arm is special. He is the kind of guy that I think we could be sitting here, a year or two from now, and if everything goes right, where I could go, oh, this is top 10 quarterback in football. This is one of the 5 best arms in football. That's where he is special, let alone, hey, here's another guy I look and go, tough as hell in the pocket, but a really good athlete. And again, not like he doesn't run as good as Kyler Murray or even as good as a Joe Burrow, but his ability to throw on the run or go scramble and get 8 or 10 yards on a given play, it is real. But it's the aggressive nature and the ability to make really difficult throws at an effortless level, I think, is what I like about Drew Lock a whole lot.
What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, it's really well said. I think you underestimated his athletic ability. He just chooses and has not chosen, even in his college career, and not as much as he should have last year, to use it more.
Yeah.
And, I always say, just give it a look. And if it's not clean or whatever, if you have the ability, you're going to see that running lane or whatever and get out, and then the play will happen. So he'll learn that with time. But the one thing you bring up, we talked about him a lot about him last year. He made wild throws and this and that. But, I made the one big mistake. I said, I think he's a second-round guy and all this. But just because it was all over the place. And the thing, it was all over the place because, one, they just were no good. And two, the offense was no good. So all the things I preach about, I went against them. And just judge him. Don't look at the team. Don't look at the numbers. Don't look at the records, and see what he is. And he showed all the traits that you talked about. And as he played this year, I was really excited to watch him come in and play. And he did everything that I thought he was capable of doing. And you kept beating on me, Christopher. I didn't give up. I stayed, I said, no, I think, probably, maybe late first, second round. I really thought second round. But now looking back on it, and I did this a long time ago, I made a mistake. He was a first-round quarterback.
Yeah, it's all right.
Chris,
we're even. I like Drew Lock. You like Daniel Jones. I was wrong about Daniel Jones. You were wrong about Drew Lock. It's good. We're all good. We're all in the trust tree together, so don't worry.
Yeah, people agreed with you, Phil, though, because he was the 4th quarterback taken last year behind Kyler and Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins. Going 27 picks past Dwayne Haskins at 42nd overall for Drew Lock, kind of like what you're talking about. The ability to take a quarterback that much later gave Denver the chance to draft Noah Fant and Dalton Risner before their franchise quarterback.
No doubt. And, you're right. So there's a support system that tells you, okay, I mean, he could explode this year. They could, especially offensively. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Drew Lock threw for 4,600 yards and 30 touchdowns and, 12 or 13 interceptions.
Chris, his MVP odds have gone from 150 to 1 before free agency and the draft to now 65 to 1, because a lot of people they like all those weapons around him. They got Judy and Hamler in the draft. They got his favorite target over there at Missouri, Albert O, as well. And so you're not alone. People think that he could shoot up, and he shot up your rankings 13 spots. He was 37th last year, so you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, hey, go ahead, Dad. Go ahead.
Well, no, I almost forgot what I was going to try to say, about Drew Lock. Well, I did forget what I was going to say.
Well, it's all right. Here, I got something to say, and just feed off of this, because this is where, to me, Drew Lock, this is how, one, yes, I think he's special. I think my father echoes those sentiments. But this is where another way I look at it, too, and go, ooh, I think Denver thinks he's special too. And yes. I know they've changed offensive coordinators, but when he got put in the lineup, they weren't like, oh, let's protect him and throw a bunch of screens and throw the ball 4 yards so the game's over. We can go, look, our rookie quarterback did pretty good. We drafted him in the second round. They kind of just unveiled it. In fact, the offense opened up when he got in there. So that tells you he's smart. And it tells you the talent was there. They went, whoa, we could do some shit with him that we haven't been able to do. Let's do it.
Yeah, it comes back to this. I remember now, this is what I was going to say about last year. You talked, you would call me constantly and beat me over the head. Look at him more, look at him. And I said, yeah, I did. Did you see that throw? Yeah, I saw that throw against Alabama. I know what you're talking about, whatever. And you know what it was? Again, I swear next year when I judge any players, especially quarterbacks, I'm not going to listen to one word anybody says, maybe my son, because here's what happened with Drew Lock. The word spread, and it was big, it was loud, and it was everywhere. Well, he never called plays in a huddle. He doesn't know how to do this. He got the plays in the sidelines. They never got under center, and it was on, and he's just not an alpha male, and and he just went on. Well, okay. And then it kind of swayed my opinion a little bit, and I know better. Everybody lies about all this stuff, and these cliches and phrases get attached to quarterbacks, and people just literally base everything on those phrases. But,
Right.
And when I talk about those people, I'm talking about people like us who go on TV and talk about quarterbacks or players, and they throw this, well, he just hasn't done this, and he's a little, and I just go, I'll never do it again. I'm done. I'm going to write a note on my big board here. Don't listen to anybody when you're judging players for the draft. Just listen to yourself.
Yeah, groupthink sweeps the nation in anything, especially in sports media, and a lot of times around the NFL draft with some of these prospects. He started 5 games last year. He won 4 of those. I was looking through his best game was probably versus Houston. That's a good team to have your best game against, playoff team.
Right.
They won week 14. He threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. His worst game was in Kansas City, but in that game I thought it was interesting, they blitzed him 21 times in that game, more than twice as many times as he was blitzed in any other game. So they came after Drew Lock.
And it was in a blizzard, if you remember, too.
I didn't remember that, no.
Yeah, the game was in a blizzard, so it wasn't a quarterback-friendly game to where you were like, oh, either him or Mahomes. Neither one was going to light up the world in that game. But, yes, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No, yeah. So Drew Lock was 25. Oh, Go ahead, Phil.
No, all you had to do, to me, if you watched the Houston game, that answered everything. That was it. He showed all the skills, everything. You don't luck into games like that. He made incredible throws, ones that Christopher was talking about, off balance, just slinging it out there, everything. And I remember watching the game, and I just went, oh, my gosh, he's even better than I thought he was going to be. So that game kind of sealed it for me, that all the things you thought about him showed up. And now the question is, can they get that to be a steady process as they go along this year?
So I knew, Chris, that you were high on Drew Lock. I wasn't quite sure what Phil thought about him, but now hearing you both are very high on him, I'm kind of surprised he's behind the person who is next on your list, number 24 on your top 40 quarterback countdown.
Yeah, number 24, and here we go, okay? Yes, it's Jared Goff, Los Angeles Rams, all right? And listen, well, first off, the first thing I want to say is if you were just looking at that graphic right there, Can we put that picture back up if by any chance you got that? That to me is one of the issues right here with Jared Goff. And I'm going to talk about this more. But this, Dad, I wish you could see it. He's got the ball up in a throwing position. The arm angle's broke. The ball's pointed in a weird position. And
the back of the ball is pointed up, right?
Yeah. This way, it's like halfway up. It's not all the way. It's kind of tilted.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I guarantee I know the picture. I've seen it many times. But go ahead.
But very, very rare. Very rare to see a quarterback ever in that position. Okay, and listen, with Jared Goff, hey, I understand. Listen, he doesn't excite me nearly as much as Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock has a way higher ceiling, is way more physically gifted than Jared Goff. I think he can do things that are just more special. But I'm going to give Jared Goff some respect. RESPECT. That's what it means to me. The guy has won some games and went to a Super Bowl. So I can't, as much as I think the ceiling for Drew Lock is better, my premises for doing this list, again, is I'm a coach. My ass is on the hot seat. And here's my quarterback pecking order for if my first guy goes down and so on. So, yeah, I think from that standpoint, okay, I trust Jared Goff a hair more than Drew Lock. Now, with Jared Goff, hey, listen, we've seen you can win football games. The kid's not an idiot. That's for sure. He's running Sean McVay's offense and taking all the understanding and doing it at the line of scrimmage and all that stuff. He can make all the throws on the field. There is good arm strength there. I'm not going to say it's great. I'm going to say it's, and I like to hear what Dad says about this after. I'm going to say it's a little above average NFL starting quarterback arm strength, but not much above that. But then, again, when I get into this, of course, I'm big into, hey, the quarterback's got to take advantage of all that's there to be had. And then when nothing's there to be had, I expect great quarterbacks to make something happen. And that to me is one of my biggest issues with Jared Goff. I've said it a lot through the years. Hey, it all looks good when Sean McVay's delivering silver platter completions and guys are wide open for 15 and 20 yards and, hey, I'm throwing a screen and Todd Gurley's not getting touched for 40 yards. Look at me. I just had a 40-yard completion. That's great. But that's the offense. And every quarterback in football can do some of that right there. That's not special. So I'm not coming away going, oh, man, if they didn't have Jared Goff, they wouldn't be able to do that. Absolutely not. Now, he is tough. He's played in some big games. No doubt about that. Does he make plays from time to time? Yes, he does. Not enough for me to put him in the top 20 or really high. It's a slow delivery. It's not the one thing that jumped out to me, Ahmed, really too, is he's not as accurate as sometimes I think he is. The accuracy numbers are a little misleading because of all the screens he throws and things like that. But when you start to break it down,
real quick, Chris, I was looking at Pro Football Reference because they kind of track that. They use, I think it's Info Solutions or something along those lines where they watch the game film. Track on-target passes. 71% of his passes they tracked as on target. That was 27th out of 32. So one of the least accurate in that category.
That's why I love you, man. You can back me up with some numbers because I'm just going off of my eyes, my feel, and my gut there. But that's the reality to me as I evaluate it. So there's that, and then it's really, and he's below average in the pocket, Ahmed. That's the last thing I would say, and that's why he is where he is. He does not have great feel in the pocket. He's not great at moving and finding a spot that's safe to throw the ball. He's not great at throwing the ball, off of different platforms or off balance and doing those type of things. So again, Jared Goff, a good quarterback. You can certainly win with him. I know that. But this is more than that. I mean, come on. Again, stop that like, oh, you can win. He went to the Super Bowl. That's great. Blake Bortles is not in the NFL. He was in the AFC Championship game 3 years ago. That doesn't mean anything. So everyone's got to get over that. But that's my breakdown of Jared Goff.
All right, so Phil, is your son being too hard on Jared Goff here? Even though he's got him ranked pretty high in his list, I was looking at, he didn't have the benefit of a good rushing game last year, 26th in the NFL. He was asked to do a lot. The drop percentage actually was fairly high for the Rams. They had some drops in there.
But that's on him too. I didn't get to that. He throws the off-target balls. He throws a lot of what I would call hard knucklers, Ahmed. The ball doesn't spin and spiral. It almost just stays in place and comes at you, and it's very hard to catch that type of football. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
See, Chris is still beating up on this guy, even I'm trying to defend him. The Rams, they did two more things here. So the offensive line play was always in question a little bit last year. Despite that, though, they had the best sack per attempt ratio in the NFL. So it didn't take a whole lot of sacks back in the pocket, despite some bad offensive line play, although that might have been more in the running game than the pass protection game. But what do you think? Is your son being too hard on some of these things with Jared Goff?
Well, I don't know if he's being too hard. He says it with just passion, so it kind of makes it even more. So that's fine. That's how he feels, and I know he works hard at it. So, but a couple things. One, he's not good in the pocket. Yes, and I said this to my son, but they don't do a lot of pocket passing. And if you can't, you can't get good at something unless you do it more than just a little. And I think he could be a really good athlete. Like when he gets out of the pocket and runs, you can see he's got decent speed and all that.
Right. Right.
I can't wait to see the new offense to see if it just, makes it better. Actually make it better for Jared Goff. Because, Christopher, teams caught on to the offense. Exactly. And they caught on to the screens and all these other things and the deep crossers. Everybody in the league is running them now. So they got to come up with more. And I didn't think they presented enough to him for him to maybe change a little bit and get better. But the throwing, he's got to, when he stripes it, I think his arm is strong. When he throws it clean and it's a spiral, he can make some great throws. But the problem is the ball does get away from him every now and then. And the NFL, if you lose, as I say all the time, if you lose control of the ball 3 or 4 times a game, that is big-time trouble. You might not make the greatest decisions, but you got to be able to throw the ball and get it really close to where you want the ball to go. Even though it might be the wrong decision, you still got to be able to do that. And a great example of it is in the Super Bowl, back of the end zone, Brandon Cooks, Jared Goff sees him late. He goes to throw it, and like he said, his arm got in some bad spots, and he didn't connect it the way he usually does. And what happened? The ball floated, took forever to get there, and it got knocked down. So that's one thing I do see in his throwing motion. And listen, it's always a pet peeve of mine, and I said to you guys, I'm going to say it one more time. Tom Brady throws a lot during the offseason, works on his craft, wants to get better, thinks about it. He just doesn't throw to throw. He's thinking about it. And, we saw the great change in Aaron Rodgers from that stupid college motion he had, and he adapted because he saw Brett Favre, figured it out, and we see greatness from him. Tony Romo, when he was playing with the Cowboys, had a great motion, really never lost control of the ball. And we would talk during the offseason and during the season and how he was always thinking and working on just making sure the release and how he got to where he wanted the ball to go. He was working on it. So that's what great throwers do. Some are just so gifted like Aaron Rodgers, it doesn't matter. He can pick it up without throwing one all offseason and do it. But his stuff is great. But the rest of them and young quarterbacks, what does Steph Curry do during the offseason to get better?
Yeah, shoots threes. Right.
He shoots. And quarterbacks, I love it when they say, well, I don't throw much. I just throw a couple days, And I just go, well, you're stupid. It's crazy. You to get better at throwing, you got to throw. And because there's innate feels about it. In other words, just you can't teach it. You learn it through just repetition and repetition of getting great feel for the ball, learning to manipulate it however you have to. You heard Christopher say that. That is one thing that Jared Goff does not do. He's not a great off-balance thrower. Plant your foot, throw it across the field, stuff like that. But and I really disagree with this. You can't change a quarterback's motion. Please shut up, because you're wrong. I know they can. I've seen them do it, and I see it all the time. Sometimes it's very small, and you don't recognize it. I do, and I know it makes a difference in what they do. Last thing, I'll just say this real quick. What happened to Baker Mayfield last year throwing the ball? He's got a really good arm, and he can throw it and he can pass it. But Baker Mayfield, for some reason, thought he was Nolan Ryan. And, hell, there comes a guy across the field. He's wide open. He's trying to throw it 100 miles an hour. And when, the harder he was trying, he did the same thing. And they almost always, well, not almost, I think every time I saw him, if it was a bad throw, it was an overthrow. And that came from trying to throw it too hard, and it leads to a mistake because the connections don't stay the way they should. So that's all I'll say.
No, well said. Well said. Yeah. One thing. I'm just going to say, well said by Dad. And, I know I've talked about this and we've talked about this before, but it's still worth saying again. Dad's right. Throwers, you can fix natural throwers can be fixed. Okay. Where we got into this narrative is of, we can never change this guy once he throws that way. Those are conversations that we've had throughout our history of football with guys who aren't natural throwers, like Tim Tebow or Blake Bortles. I'm sorry to go to Blake Bortles again here, but those are the things I heard about them. I know it never fails, but those are the things you hear about them. And I would just sit here and tell most people, you can't fix them because they're not really natural, what we would call naturally gifted throwers. Can you just pick up any object and let it go? Wiffle ball, rock, baseball, Nerf football, real football, basketball, whatever it was. Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers can throw whatever that damn object is you put in their hand, and you're going to go, whoa, okay? Unnatural throwers, I don't give a crap if Phil Simms teaches them or, anybody else out there. There's going to be a limited ceiling as far as how much they can adjust, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You agree with that, Dad? Am I right there?
Yes, you do. Ahmed, let me say this. No, and I've said this to you before, but I'll say it again anyway. Nobody knows more about the 100 meters than me. I train for it better than anybody. I work hard at it. I live the life. I get down that stance, the gun goes off, my ass is coming in last. Okay? So all that means – and the thing about throwing, here's what gets me. Yeah, they don't change their motions, because who's going to teach them? Who's going to teach them? Tell me. That's the problem. You can't change their motion. Yeah, because you don't know how to teach them to do it. That's the problem. And you could take many of these guys and tweak them a little. Is Johnny Parker, our strength coach for the New York Giants for many years, I said to him once, what do you think? Would it really make Lawrence Taylor any better if he really trained and stayed in shape and did all that? And he goes, he's Southern from Mississippi. He goes, Phil, all I can say is this. If the sun was 1 degree closer to Earth, Earth would explode. And I said, okay, I got it. And it was it. And so, just think of Lawrence Taylor. What he was great. But what would he have been if he took care of himself, still had the same mentality, and trained to be better? My God, he would be the greatest player that ever stepped on the field in the NFL.
Yeah, still a lot of people hoping that Jared Goff can get better because he'll always have that the scarlet letter, but it's a scarlet number, 134 million, 110 guaranteed. He's talked about perhaps restructuring that contract to help him fit some more players under the salary cap, but that's a discussion that we've had, Chris, with a lot of quarterbacks. Can you win with a quarterback making that much money? And oftentimes it's the talk of, even with an elite quarterback, let alone a quarterback that's on the level of Jared Goff, making that much money makes it that much tougher.
Yeah, well, yeah. Go ahead, Dad. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, Ahmed, what is it about every quarterback's contract that comes up? It has to be the biggest one. Well, we just said it was $34 million, so my guy's got to get at least $35. I don't get that. I mean,
if I was an agent, I would say that. If I was a sports agent, that would be my line.
Well, yeah, that's your line. But I just don't understand it. Why every team thinks, oh, well, okay, his contract's up. We're going to make him the highest paid guy out. Boy, excuse me, the highest paid guy out there. I just don't understand that logic. And I think sooner or later, somebody's going to balk.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to go, somebody's going to balk. Sooner or later, one NFL team's going to go, you know what? We're going to save that $38 million we're going to pay you, and we're going to get this other guy, but we're going to add more players because we're not paying you $38 million. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not against the quarterbacks making the money. I'm not. But I don't understand why every contract has to be the biggest one compared to the one that was just done.
Yeah.
Well, you
It's a
can tell
fear.
that's
It's a fear.
we're
Musical chairs
related
that
here.
you'll be left. Yeah. You were both going to say the same thing.
Oh, you
right
talk
there.
about that too, Christopher? Yeah, well.
I mean, yeah, it's to me right now, it should be okay. This is what Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers make, and nobody makes more until you show me that you're better than them. And the only people we could talk about maybe being better than them right now are, maybe a Deshaun Watson and, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, that's fine. They've earned that. But you're right. I don't get it. I don't get teams. I mean, the Rams negotiated against themselves on a quarterback that, again, as I see, is number 24 in football. And I don't think anybody in football, just so we can clarify this, I mean, nobody thinks Jared Goff is a top 10 quarterback. Nobody. I just want to clarify that. And I know I've been very passionate about the Jared Goff thing and this whole thing here, too. And it's not personal to Jared Goff. I like Jared Goff. I mean, I think he knows some of the things I've said about him. I don't think he likes me very much. Okay. But I do respect him, and I do think he's tough, and I do think he loves football. I'm passionate about this one because I know the Twitterverse and everybody else is going to try to shit on me. And that's why I probably came out with a little more passion here, Ahmed, that might have got mistaken for Jared Goff hate.
Yeah,
and I don't hate anybody.
You're saying good things, and I'll tell you what, just watching him on the field and all that, he comes across great. I'm sure his teammates really like him. He's not a celebrity. Look at me. He really,
right.
I can tell he loves his job. I can tell he loves football. I do. And I think it's a big year for him. And the fact that we've heard all this and what's Sean McVay going to do. And really, I know we said it was easy, but I don't know if it was easy for him last year and things like that. And just,
no.
I don't know. So I root for him. I do. But there's the things that we talk about, Christopher and I, Ahmed, I think they're true. And I'm always very careful when I talk about quarterbacks to be, true to them and either explain and let them know that I know, I'm just not making it up. I'm not just sitting there giving an opinion. I do it from the facts that I see as I watch, not some games. I watch every game of his during the year. So, and he has moments where I just go, damn, that was really good. And so I'd like just to see more of those moments. I think Christopher made it really perfectly clear. Last thing is that, to be a great NFL quarterback, there just comes to a point we just take for granted the really good plays. We just take for granted. And that's when we take those for granted, then you're good. That's
right.
We just see Mahomes make the throw in the Super Bowl, 14 yards back from the line of scrimmage, get ready to get hit, and he throws a whatever completion to the wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, and we take that for granted because he's done it so much and so consistently that we just go, we expect it now. When he doesn't do it, we're like, Christopher, you were watching the game with me, right?
Yeah, not with you.
And then
no.
we were going, oh, you weren't with me. I forgot. But I'm going, man, Mahomes, he's just not quite on like he usually is, And of course, when I watched the game on tape, I understood why, because he was under great pressure and they were killing him and whatever. But, I had a different perspective once I watched it a second time. But, we just take for granted that he's going to be great every time he goes out there.
No doubt. And
Ahmed,
it speaks to the bigger thing of there's a lot of good damn quarterbacks in football right now. Like, to what Dad was talking about the contracts right now, a second ago. I mean, we got 8 starting quarterbacks going into the 2020 season who have been drafted in the last 2 drafts. So that just tells you what's coming in the league right now, the talent that's already in the league, some of the old timers that are still playing at a high level, Brady, Breeze, Big Ben, Phillip Rivers. So there ain't a quarterback problem in the NFL right now. You can win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. That's obvious. I'm not even trying to deny that. You can do it. I'm just saying he's not as good as the 23 guys I got in front of him.
Number 23, Chris.
Sam Darnold, New York Jets, right? Sam Darnold. Hey, do I still have a few questions about Sam Darnold? Certainly. I mean, we haven't seen him play a full 16-game season yet. But I saw improvements from year 1 to year 2 with Sam Darnold in some areas that I wanted to see improvement. One of my issues with Sam Darnold going into the 2019 season was I thought he was a below average down the field thrower. And when I say down the field, I mean anything above 18 yards, 20 yards, anything like that. I didn't love that. He was better last year. I don't know what the stats and numbers say, but that's what my eyes told me. And then the other things about Sam Darnold that are positive, okay? He's got a very quick release. You talk about getting the ball out of your hand in a hurry in a short passing game, screens. I mean, he can get it out of his hand about as good as anybody in the NFL, not named maybe Aaron Rodgers, as far as quickness of throwing it. Then I get into two other things that really jump out to me, what I like about Sam Darnold. He is phenomenal in the pocket. I mean, a master Jedi, like, in the pocket. He really is. He's got phenomenal feet. He's got great feel. He's one of those guys that can move around the pocket, and like, it looks like he's looking at the rush the way he's avoiding these guys, but yet he can look downfield and still evaluate his receivers and the coverage and still make throws that way, let alone he is a phenomenal, phenomenal intermediate passer of the football. Anything between 5 and 15 yards, it is freaking bullseye, like 95% of the time. And I think that's what I really like about Sam Darnold. So there's a lot of potential there. It's a big year for him and the Jets for sure. I know we don't know maybe completely what he is yet because he hasn't played that 16-game season, but I think it's going in the right direction. I'm a big fan of Sam Darnold.
What do you think, Phil?
Well, that was well said. I'll just say this. He does have great feet in the pocket, and it just kind of shows you if you go to the right school and you got talent as a quarterback and they let you exploit that talent, then you can bring it to the NFL, and that's what's great. You know, Joe Burrow got to do it. Sam Darnold got to do it at USC, moved around all the time, and we looked at it kind of as a negative, where now I go, it's really helped him because we know pro football, moving in the pocket and buying time, is about as important as throwing or anything else. So
right.
He throws a great football. It's always got the right pace on it. He always throws beautiful spirals, easy to catch. You said it, he is a machine throwing from 15 yards and under. I like the fact that he moves around. And the other thing is, too, even though you don't see him talk and all that, I just think he's got a great presence on the field as a quarterback. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm a little biased because he's local, but I don't think it is. But he just, there's something about him. I think players will gravitate towards him. They'll let him lead them. And, he has all that stuff that you want. It's kind of easy for him. And he's quiet, but his body actions on the field and on the sidelines, even though he's not talking sometimes, don't say that.
Very real.
And I really watched it close. And, of course, I talked to a lot of people that know more about him. And and everything I've just said, they just go, absolutely. And I think the Jets are sitting there now going, man, do we have a quarterback roster? If Joe Flacco gets healthy, he's backing up.
Right.
They got Morgan from FIU. Now, instead of everything blown up when he gets hurt, which it did last year especially, and at least they got somebody capable that can come in for a while and duplicate what he's going to be doing for the team.
Yeah,
I like him a lot.
Steps up.
So
yeah, Chris, he took some steps up. They won 3 more games than they did the previous year in 2019. His completion percentage went up 4%, yards up, touchdowns up, interceptions up. A lot of people in the media like to talk about him and talk him up right now. It seems like his stock is rising. Dan Orlovsky over at ESPN created some waves when he said any quarterback taken over the last 3 years, he would take this guy for the next 10 into the future. And so that's over a guy like Lamar Jackson. Clearly, you do not agree with him there.
No, I do not.
Cowherd, you hear him talk all the time. He said he'd take Sam Darnold over Dak. So I am a little curious. You got him at 23. You're very positive about him. He did drop 1 spot from your rankings last year. So I'm curious what the downside concerns you have with Sam Darnold are.
Well, again, I don't know if there's enough of a sample size yet for me to sit out there and just go, oh, okay, he's top 10. That's no doubt about it. I don't know if there is. And listen, part of that's the Jets, too. It hasn't been the greatest support system. It's not going to look perfect for Sam Darnold all the time. Hey, Robbie Anderson was the only go-to guy he had. They had no running game. Le'Veon Bell struggled. Offensive line wasn't great. I like the Adam Gase offense. I don't love it. I think that's another area of growth in that. But again, it's not necessarily, I don't look at the year before and go, oh, I had him here this year, and now this next year I got to move him up just a little bit. No, I don't, because some other guys just might have moved up and played really awesome to where, yeah, Sam Darnold was better this year than year one. There's just some other guys that also impressed me as much or more. Sam Darnold is the type of guy where, I wouldn't be shocked if we were sitting here next year and he was in my top 10. I wouldn't be. But I think the biggest thing with Sam Darnold, to me, I guess the one thing I would like to see more is those in the pocket, game-changing, big-time type throws, okay? Like, to me, where a guy like, okay, let's just say Drew Lock, who we talked about a little earlier. Drew Lock and the Denver Broncos, he's going to make some throws every game in the pocket that are going to change field position, change the flow of the football game, along with the offense is going to be able to call certain plays with him because of his ability to throw big-time strikes from the pocket down the field. That, to me, is just one area where Sam Darnold, I look at and could get better. Hey, whether that's like a 25-yard missile down the right sideline in between a cover two corner and a safety, but those type of things. That's the one area I look at as Sam Darnold and go, ooh, I like everything about him. Dad talked about him, the aura or presence he has. It's very real. I've been around all these guys, really. And I've been around Sam Darnold a lot. It's a quiet confidence about him. He has a presence as soon as he walks in the room. He's smart. You can see he's kind of evaluating everybody. If you say something stupid, he's very quick on his toes and will make fun of that right away, which I love, okay? But I think that's the thing that maybe bothers me about his play, maybe more than anything, if there was a negative there. Dad, you got a negative on him that jumps out to you?
Only I guess the negative is I now hope we get a chance to see even more of him because the talent is better. They've got the offensive line hopefully straightened out. It could be their line actually could turn out to be pretty better than just okay. It could be pretty good, and see if Le'Veon Bell comes back in super shape and football shape to be a better part of the football team. But he's got more targets to throw to. And I expect the offense to be more diverse than it was in years past. The last, how many years? I'm sitting there, I got Adam Gase. He's been there.
This will be
his third year coming up.
Yes, third year, right?
Yeah, isn't that terrible? It goes so quick. But yeah, I expect more. But yes, I want to see him truly, be that more dynamic guy and really kind of dominate the team a little more. I want to see the game. I want to see the team flow through Sam Darnold.
Right.
We're going to win and lose because our quarterback is the man, and we're going to, when in doubt, we're going to play around him.
That's what it is, Ahmed. Dad really hit it. That's really what it is. And that's probably why he's 23 because, I think there's other quarterbacks we're going to get to a little bit on this list where, the game is played through them, and it's not played through Sam Darnold quite yet. There's still a little bit of he's young, we're going to protect him, and you're right. This is the year that I think Dad hit it. They got to let it go and let everything flow from him. And, hey, there's a reason they picked him number 3 and let him carry the squad from there.
Giving him some support in the draft, too. Mekhi Becton will help on the offensive line. Denzel Mims may help.
Denzel Mims, yeah.
Okay, let's kick this thing off at number 22. Name is on your list.
Daniel Jones. We're staying in New York, baby. DJNY. That's what I call him. There's DKNY, right? Like Donna in New York. Well, This is Daniel Jones, New York, all right? It used to be DJNY like Derek Jeter in New York. Now it's a new DJ in town. But, yes, Daniel Jones, to me, blew me out of the water in his rookie season. First off, we're talking like elite, high-level thrower, passer of the football. And I know come up and just throw flames and lasers all over the field, bombs. He can do that, but he's a phenomenal passer too. And what I mean by that is pinpoint accuracy, timing, a rhythm thrower who can throw with anticipation sometimes. So he really has it all and throws perfect spirals. Accuracy is amazing, fearless in the pocket. I know one thing that blew me out of the water, Paulie, is his athletic ability.
Yeah.
I saw a little of it at Duke, but man, this past year when there was some times when there a hole parted, or a hole presented itself, man, he can rip off 15, 20, 30-yard type runs. He's that type of an athlete. So
and he was the only one with Kyler Murray to average over 6 yards per carry last year of that rookie.
There you go. There you go. And I would say really it's also, even though it's one of his strengths, one of his weaknesses I would point to was do it more. Do it more, Daniel Jones, because one of his great strengths is his athletic ability. Another great strength of his is his ability to stand in the pocket and be fearless and make big-time throws. Now, that's like a gift and a curse because it leads to him also losing sight of what's around him in the pocket, which led him to leading the league in fumbles this past year. So he's got to fix that, certainly. But when you talk about, you brought up Kyler Murray. I mean, rookie quarterback, Saquon Barkley was banged up a little last year. They didn't have a great offensive line for the run game or the pass game. You take over for a legend at quarterback, and then you don't have necessarily the greatest supporting cast around you. Evan Ingram in and out of the lineup. Sterling Shepard in and out of the lineup. Golden Tate suspended for a number of games. Darius Slayton was his go-to guy. And that just tells me that how much confidence they had in Daniel Jones and his ability and his mental side, to where they, like Kyler Murray, put the game on his shoulders on a weekly basis and just said, okay, I know we're not very good, Daniel, but if you can throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, we'll win today. If you don't, we're going to lose. And that's asking a lot of a rookie, but I really like what I saw from Daniel Jones in year one.
I give you a lot of credit for how your evaluation of Daniel Jones has evolved in the last, let's go back to a year ago, April. You weren't convinced he was a first-round pick. You, just like me, saw it as a red flag that the number one thing everyone was saying about him to compliment him, he played for David Cutcliffe, just like the Mannings. What was your first indication, the first time you were watching and thought, you know what, maybe there's a little more to him than I originally thought?
Right. Well, I'm always at a little bit of a, tough spot because I don't always get to see these guys throw in person. I'd like to think that if I saw Daniel Jones in person before the draft, it would have changed my thought or opinion. But nonetheless, in my evaluation, first off, I don't want to be a hater. And I'm not going to be one of these Americans right now that are like, no, this is what I believe and I'll never change no matter how much evidence you show me. No, I am going to be smart and evolve my thoughts by the evidence I see, right? Like Drew Brees with his whole issue. Oh, wait, I made a mistake. Whoa, I've hurt some people. Okay, let me not be stubborn white American and actually look at it and go, hey, my thoughts here are wrong. I'm in the wrong. I need to readjust and look myself in the mirror. Okay, well, I try to do the same thing at quarterback. And I made a golden mistake of doing what I did a little bit with Dak Prescott. But yet, what pisses me off is with guys like Jarrett Stidham and Drew Lock, I didn't do it. But Daniel Jones, I think, because of what you said, the lack of sexiness with the Duke offense, a very short passing game, and then him being, not the sexiest looking player as far as pizzazz points, I think I downgraded him because of that. And that's where I was certainly wrong. And Paul, here was the first time I knew I was in trouble, okay? I didn't even have to go with seeing him on TV. My dad went to Giants training camp, and he came home and he called me and he went, Christopher, Daniel Jones. I mean, everybody says he's doing awesome. They say he's doing awesome. And he goes, Christopher, I was there. Whoa, he can throw it, Christopher. I mean, it's perfect spiral. He can throw it as hard as he wants. He started saying things like that to me, and that's when first time I went, uh-oh. Chris might have been wrong on his evaluation on this one. And then, of course, I got to see him on the field, and he proved me very wrong after that.
I'm a huge proponent of watching a quarterback in person. I always tell people how much more you can see and how much more you can tell. I'll follow up if I feel like you left something out. But since you brought it up, what is it you can see in person from someone that you cannot see on tape, even if that person is highly efficient and effective on tape?
Yeah, well, something, sometimes in person, it goes for any position. First off, sometimes the size of the person, when you see them in person, you go, whoa, this is a bigger guy than I gave him credit for. It could be all positions, but at a quarterback, you can see that, and that makes you believe, whoa, he'll be able to stand there in the pocket. he'll be able to make throws with people all around him because he's so big and strong. It won't be that much effort to throw a 20-yard out route or whatever it may be in the chaos. And because of the different styles of the certain guys and their delivery and the way they throw the football, the TV sometimes doesn't do justice to how fast the ball is cutting through the air and spinning. You know, if you have a quarterback, this is what I always say about Brady, and Daniel Jones has a similar motion. Because they're long and have big hands and square shoulders and long arms, they can throw their 100-mile-per-hour fastball with like 90% effort, you know, because of their levers. And on TV, it could just like, oh, he looks like he's in the park throwing a ball, nice and relaxed. But then you get there in person and you go, whoa, shit, that ball was whistling. That ball's flying through the air. You know, we knew Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers are throwing the ball hard, right? Because there's the theatrics and you can just see it, and then they use so much of their body and everything. So then the ball pops out and you're just like, whoa. You know, sometimes those guys can fool you a little bit. And I think that's, you know, at least what jumps out to me more times than not when I'm wrong about a person on tape and then I see them in person.
I think the biggest thing when you see a quarterback in person is you see when you're standing there on field level and put your eyes on it, and ideally you're close to them, you see how the ball gets from point A to point B. And when you're watching on TV and you're watching on tape, it's just a brown spot that either gets there or doesn't. And when you're there, you can see the RPMs, which says how well he can control any ball, how well he can cut it through the wind. And you see if it's a catchable ball or not, and if it's nose up or nose down, or if it gets to the receiver in a friendly way. And those are all things you can only see if you're standing right there at field level. And obviously your dad saw it. You saw it a little last year. And it's something we don't get to see a lot of times in the build up to the draft that matters a whole lot.
No, you're right. It's the toughest thing about my job, really, when it comes to draft evaluation. It is, you know, all I can do is go what I see on film. You know, sometimes I'm wrong on my draft evaluation because all right, you know, I didn't get to see what the guy actually looks like in person. And you're right. Either, he can move or throw the ball faster or more explosive than you think, you know, or I don't know the off the field issues or, you know, how he is intellectually. So sometimes you're wrong just because you don't have the access to that information. But I'm with you. You're exactly right. Those are the things you can see in person. How fast it spins, the quality of the ball, the effort in which it takes to throw a ball really hard. And you're exactly right. Hey, Brady really shocked me the first time I saw him in person.
Yes. Yep.
Big Ben. The first time I saw Big Ben in person, because, you know, he's so big and strong and he sits back on that back leg and it looks like he's just throwing it smooth. But when you sit there and see it, you go, whoa, that ball is cutting through the air right now. He can fire it. So you can't trust TV all the time.
Here's one for you that can really get you thinking about Daniel Jones. He was the 6th overall pick last year. 6th overall pick in this year's draft, Chris, Justin Herbert, who you also like a lot. You get one as your quarterback of the future. Which one excites you more?
Oh, that is a really good one. I think Justin Herbert's pure physical ability excites me more. Now, some of the nuanced things about playing the position, I do think Daniel Jones is ahead of Justin Herbert, right? You talked about it. David Cutcliffe, you know, yes, he was really well schooled and coached in college. And then, of course, you know, played a lot last year. You know, I think Justin Herbert's a little bit more of a raw of a prospect and certainly hasn't been in a pro offense like Daniel Jones is. So there's that element that gives Jones the advantage. But Herbert, to me, that size, speed, and ability to throw 105-mile-per-hour fastballs and make plays that way, to me, excites me just a little bit more than Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones and the Giants, a threat to win double-digit games this year?
That's questionable. I think they're on the right track. You know, they need to stay healthy. They have improved their offensive line. I think their defense is going to be better too. But no, I still don't say I could sit here and look at this roster and go, oh, no, yeah, this team's got a chance to be in the playoffs. No, as a Giants fan sitting here right now, I'm looking at it going, hey, I hope we can go 8-8 and just be in the playoff conversation here, because there's nothing on paper or from last 2 years of football to sit here and give me the confidence to go, oh, they'll be in the playoff conversation as of December. No, I don't see that happen. I think they're 2 years away
from playoff talk here as far as the Giants are concerned.
A lot of talk with any quarterback that the most improvement is from the rookie season to the second year. Now he has former Giants quarterback Jason Garrett, basically a decade being a head coach in Dallas behind him, can just focus on that offense and Daniel Jones' improvement. You think about Jones with Garrett, what's your first thought?
Oh, like I first off, I like Jason Garrett's offense. People, like to crap on it a lot. I understand that, but it still was the number one offense in football last year. And people need to get away from Jason Garrett when he was the head coach and stop putting him in the box of that was his offense. No, it wasn't always. They had Scott Linehan some of those years we were all complaining about their offense and things like that. When Jason Garrett was strictly an offensive coordinator, they did some pretty special things down there in Dallas. Even when he was calling the plays as the head coach too. He got out of it because he mismanaged some game situations because he was so worried about the offensive game plan and things like that. And that's ultimately what made him change. But I think Jason Garrett's offense, it's got everything. It really does. And I think the fact that he gets to sit there and just hone in on that and what Daniel Jones can do is exciting for Giants fans.
All right, Daniel Jones from unranked last year to number 22 this year, bringing us to quarterback number 21.
Oh, baby, we're going to Cleveland because I believe in. Yes, sir, Baker Mayfield. What's up, Baker Mayfield? He's coming in, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And, Baker Mayfield certainly wasn't his best year in 2019. I know that. But, the one thing, Paul, that I go back to, and I know he threw some interceptions, and that's concerning, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But the one thing I really, when I went back and watched the film, and really why I have him here is, man, does he make a lot of game-changing throws. That's one thing he does. Flips field position or, the offense can't get it going, and he makes a big throw down the middle of the field or deep down the sideline to kind of flip the momentum of the game. And that's what I like about Baker Mayfield. Awesome in the pocket. I mean, he's like Manny Pacquiao, how he can dance around the pocket and buy time, and has a great knack for also seeing down the field while he does it. Phenomenal thrower of the football on the run. It's a big-time arm, Paul. I mean, it's in the conversation for one of the 10 best arms in the sport. Now, within that, it also brings some of the weakness, too. His arm, him reaching back to throw it 107 miles per hour instead of just being happy that you could throw it 102 miles per hour, led him to throw balls that were inaccurate at times. I know, and you and I talked about that a lot. And also his confidence in his arm sometimes leads him to think, I can get that ball in there, like all strong-arm quarterbacks. And then you go, no, you can't. Somebody else got their hand in there, and now it's an interception. So those are the negatives. But the positives, I still think far outweigh the negatives in Baker Mayfield's game.
I want to jump on one of those negatives, and doing so, go back to when you had him ranked at number 17 last year. We got something written down here that you said at that point. You said, I don't see many weaknesses in his game other than experience. His aggressiveness came back to bite him at times, but he'll learn to manage that. His aggressiveness, and as you just said, his confidence in his arm did come back to bite him a few times. If you are Kevin Stefanski, the new head coach, offensive background, he'll be working with Baker Mayfield a lot. If you're Alex Van Pelt's offensive coordinator there, working with Baker a lot, what do you do in the early stages of this relationship to kind of fix that aggressiveness so he hangs on to it, but it's not a big problem anymore?
Yeah, well, you're certainly going to have to. You probably show him first a tape of like the egregious interceptions, like, hey, these are the bad ones. This is stupid. We got to get this out of the game. Then maybe show him a tape of, okay, here's some interceptions that, hey, we don't like that it's an interception, but we can live with. There's a difference. Hey, Baker, do you see the difference between some of these and the decision making? And then you go into the self-inflicted interceptions where you go, oh, this guy was open. You threw it to the right guy, but your feet were cockeyed for no reason at all. Or, I know you and I have had this conversation too, where, he's got the football and he's looking to hit it 350 down the middle of the fairway instead of just being happy to hit it 320 down the fairway, where he's really reaching back and trying to get extra, so that would be another thing I would look at Baker Mayfield to go, look at this. Well, why? Rookie year, Oklahoma, you always kept it tight. You never lost control of the football. What were you trying to do? And I would have tried to explain some of those things to him too, to go, hey, you have plenty of arm. We don't need to reach back for more. He's got a special arm. It's a gifted arm where he can throw the ball just about any way he wants and any position he wants. It's that good. But I think that's kind of where you start. And I think the biggest thing, though, Paul, and I know you and I talked about this during the season, is I love that he can throw anything like a Patrick Mahomes, feet all over the place, sidearm, laser, down the field, all of that. But sometimes, like you and I discussed, it could be a 10-yard curl route, the pocket's perfect, and his feet are all over the place, and there's no reason for it, and it leads to an errant throw or something else, and that's where he's got to clean that up too, and I'm sure they'll get on him about that.
Kevin Stefanski just spent the last 2 years, right? Spent a lot of years in Minnesota, but the last two working closely with Kirk Cousins, and Kirk easily had his best 2 seasons individually, also won a lot of games that he's had in his tenure in the NFL. Do you think Stefanski should show Baker Mayfield here's some examples of what I'd like to see? Take a look at this from the last 2 years that Kirk did. Is that something that would help him, or should he just move on from that?
No, I think it's always a great starting point. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been successful in that offense. And I think what you'll be able to do really to Baker Mayfield is go, look at these plays Kirk Cousins making, running the offense. Look what look, we're winning games, went to the divisional playoff game. Hey, Baker, I think you actually have more physical talent than Kirk Cousins, so you could do this at a higher level. And, I don't love the Kevin Stefanski offense because I think an offense has to be built a certain way to really make his offense work. Listen, he wants to run the ball, bootlegs, play actions. That's about all he wants to do. Well, so be it. Cleveland's offense is built for that. And I do think Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski has a chance to be kind of a special marriage here. And like I said, Mayfield can do what Kirk Cousins does, but I think at a much higher level. He's a better athlete. He throws it better on the run. He's got a stronger arm. Kirk Cousins he's played a lot of football and played on some good offenses, and that's certainly where he's got a good advantage. And I'm not trying to say he doesn't have physical ability, but I do think Baker Mayfield's pure ability is greater than Kirk Cousins, and then we know they got some weapons in Cleveland to do some stuff too.
Thinking about the weapons, and I like you, I think that obviously I think Baker Mayfield's physical talent is better than Kirk Cousins. Doesn't mean he's a better quarterback right now, but he does have better abilities, a better raw talent. How about those weapons, though? You line up what Cousins had, what Stefanski had last year in Minnesota, running back to tight end and receiver, so what Mayfield has now, along with Kevin in Cleveland. How does it compare?
Whoa, I mean, I think the potential there in Cleveland is greater than anything he had in Minnesota. And I certainly say that with all due respect to Dalvin Cook and Thielen and Stephon Diggs, who were awesome and are awesome. I get it. But I think when you have a healthy Jarvis Landry and a healthy Odell Beckham Jr., I say watch out NFL. And I think those are two guys that are going to be back with vengeance this year. They're special. As I've told you before, I think a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. is one of the most talented receivers I've ever seen in my life. But then you get into, let's not forget, Nick Chubb, one of the best running backs in football. It was a pretty good run-blocking offensive line last year. That's really where I think Freddie Kitchens and them messed up. They played through the passing game and then tried to run the ball instead of – they should have just ran the ball, and then the passing game would have been very easy. But I think that Cleveland, when you talk about – Njoku and Hooper, who they signed in free agency at tight end. And then the additions to the tackle position with Conklin and Jedrick Wills. I go, Cleveland has on paper the chance to be a top 5, top 8 offense in football.
Here's one for you. What AFC North quarterback coaching challenge intrigues you more? If you could spend your fall coaching Joe Burrow in his rookie season or Baker Mayfield trying to take the next step in season 3, which one would you sign up for?
Oh, yeah, they're both good ones. I mean, they both got their challenges. Oof, man. I guess I think what would inspire me more, I love Joe Burrow, don't get me wrong. It'd be really cool to work with him. But I think the fact of the awesome rookie year to the little bit of all over the place second year with Baker Mayfield would motivate me to go, hey, I can get you right. I know, I've seen it. Year 1, I saw all the pieces. Year 2, I saw all of it too. It just went off course here and there. But I think I would be more excited to go with Baker Mayfield just at this point because of those challenges, being in Cleveland. The narrative's already started on Baker Mayfield. Oh, if he doesn't have a great year this year, do they need to draft another quarterback? Are you kidding me? No. He's the number 1 pick in the draft. They're not going to give up on him after 3 years in the NFL. That's insanity. Everybody's got to listen to the words that are coming out of their mouth sometimes. But I think, yeah, it probably would be more excited with everything that encompasses Baker Mayfield, and some of that talent around him would excite me more than maybe Joe Burrow in Cincinnati.
Would you pick that over spending all this time with Florio, myself, and Ahmed?
Oh, not even close.
You hesitated.
The hell was
slight
you
hesitation.
3? I mean, I can go hang out with Jarvis, OBJ, Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield.
Crowd.
I mean, you guys are cool, but you're not as cool as them.
But,
sorry.
Understood. We'd miss you, but we'd pull for you. I definitely understand why
thanks.
you departed.